Yeah, man.
So how does this relationship with Odell turn into Mint and what we know as the beginnings of Mint?
Okay, so we had I gotta use my brain here. Go back in time in the
I
Wayback
know.
Machine.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all good because I discovered stuff that I even haven't thought about in a while.
Right.
So the iteration of another iteration of Mint was something where we were doing like the funk fusion thing, right?
Yep.
And I remember we did a performance at, and forgive me if I come in and forget some things that I'll be adding along the way, just because
No, that's
I'm
fine.
forgetting about this. So
We're just hanging. This is what this podcast is.
What happened was, so we had this iteration of this funk fusion thing, and we did a gig at the Martin Luther King Center in St. Paul.
Okay.
And it was really funny because I said the whole Minneapolis thing was going on, and
Oh yeah.
we had this section in the show where we were just like doing our own thing, and then Odell was just like, he was doing the Prince thing. We was doing these like pelvic thrusts and whatnot. Everybody's like,
Yeah.
oh.
At the Martin Luther King.
Yeah, it was hilarious, man. It was hilarious.
Yeah.
And at that time too, we also had another young gentleman playing with us who had, joined. We were playing in the basement. So, well, let's get together and play. And Roger Lynch.
I know Little Raj.
Yes, Little Raj.
I knew Little Raj.
Yes. And so, well, let me go back. So before that, somehow Raj came to town, or, we heard about him, this little 12-year-old kid, as old as my boy now, and who was amazing. Mm-hmm. And he came in the basement. It's like he found out I had this little mauve that I brought from Torp's Music in St. Paul. It was a popular store.
Oh, yeah.
And it was owned by this lady named Cheryl. And Cheryl played in this group called Shangoya, who I used to go and watch, which Cliff Alexis Sr. was a part of that. So you see how all these connections and stuff happen. So I bought this, and he was, Raj comes on, you got a Moog. Whoa. And he was just like really, really excited about it, and he was just going to town on it. So, it was one of my earliest memories of meeting. He was 13 at the time.
Wow.
So Raj was included in that gig. And so in the audience, not in the audience, in the wing was Lawrence Waddell. Lawrence before that played for, I believe it was either Geraldine or Javita Steele, one of the Steeles. Okay. He was playing, accompanying her.
Okay.
And he saw the group. He was like, man, y'all are killing it. Sounds great, man. So then we included him. We just started. It just came from jam sessions, Okay. So it became this instrumental thing. And then Larry brought a whole other, he really heightened our sensibility on the jazz side, because he's just as brilliant as he is. He's amazing, know. And so that went down like that. That's where Lawrence came in, and just continuing in the basement. My dad, back then we had the joke. It's like, man, you're doing all this practicing. When you gonna do a gig? You know what I mean? It's like, you're gonna leave the fight in the gym, man. It's like, what do you,
right?
And my dad would try to get us these gigs. We're like, no, we're not ready. So I didn't really think we had a real goal then, other than just to play and have fun, and whatever was of the latest thing that we liked. Mm-hmm. We would try to emulate that and just do our own thing. So we. It's just, when I think back, it's just so funny, man, the little songs, because there's some stuff my dad would be like, oh, man, some nights I would be like, so glad you were done. So y'all play some old ugly music sometimes. Like, I'd be like, what?
My mom used to call it rang-a-jang music. What are you playing that rang-a-jang? And smeary guitar. There'd be like a rock and roll solo. She called that smeary guitar. So I feel, I understand.
Yeah, so yeah.
I feel your pain.
But, they loved it because it was positive, and they saw something. There was some promise there. So there was some potential. And, being my father, a man of the community that he still is. And at that time, there was a lot of connections and a lot of things he could hook us up with. So there were a few events and festivals that we would play, that kind of thing. And so, there came a time where we met another friend of ours who was just working a regular 9-to-5, and he loved Prince, this guy, and he basically was like, man, I get some money. We should just get a rehearsal space somewhere, and and just start jamming. So it became this thing where this guy became, I guess, the lead singer. He wasn't really a lead singer, but he just loved being out front, and he had energy and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he loved to scream really loud, and but that was pretty much his thing. So
yeah.
So that was it, man. It became me, and I'm forgetting some things along the way. I remember that there was a time somewhere in there where Roger Lynch, he went to go play with his father, right? And so we were looking for another keyboard player. And we found that in Kerry, who was coming. He was the last one to come out of Central. And I should talk about Jeff Allen, too, because he was a very integral part. Went to Central, seen him playing at all the little school events, and he was playing, alto sax. This one time I seen him playing alto, and he was playing keyboards at the same. I was like, dude was talented, man. Yeah. He was like, he would switch off, and much like Jason, pretty much the same vibes. Like, this dude was like, wow.
Jason's my nephew, for those of you listening. That's my nephew.
Yes, that's right. Another Peterson, another alien.
Yeah.
And so, Jeff became a part of that whole, playing in the basement and really practicing that kind of thing. And so Kerry came in after Roger left to go play with his dad and that whole thing. And that was kind of the beginning of it. We had this other guy. There's a few things. I'm so out of order here because I'm just remembering things.
That's okay, man.
When we graduated high school, let me get my thoughts together here. We were trying to figure out what we wanted to do. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do, but we had this thing going, right?
Right.
And I had an opportunity at the time because I was still playing drums around town and working, had all these odd jobs, and to go play with this guy named George Pettis. He was on MCA Records, and he had
I remember George. I think I played on his record.
Oh yeah.
I think I did. I know Ricky did. Ricky might have produced it with David Z.
Probably. I'm vaguely remembering some. Yeah, I can't remember which song or which album. He might have had like 2 albums, maybe, or something like that.
Right.
I don't know. So anyway, it was this big tour with Whitney Houston, and so I went every nook and cranny of Europe. So that experience, and I was barely 20. I had just turned 20, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life, and that's what really lit. I already knew music. In 11th grade is when I was like, okay, I think I'm going to try, doing this, because I got scared. I was like, next year I'm out of here. What am I going to do?
Right.
That's when I really started thinking about it, like for real.
Yep.
And so I didn't go to college. I remember going to Northern Illinois University, and where Cliff Alexis actually went after graduation. He left Central High and went there. And I kind of monitored classes. I was like, no, I don't want to do this. So I was working, playing, working, doing that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I got the gig, went over to Europe, and came back. I remember telling Odell, I was like, man, we get back, we're going to hit it. We're going to really do something, special. So the guy that I told you who worked, we did that and went into the rehearsal halls and started to rehearse and that kind of thing. So we also, after that, took a trip there was 4 of us. So there was me, Larry, Odell, and there's a guy named Ray Coleman from Wisconsin, from Milwaukee, amazing bass player. And we took a trip out to L.A., and it was, I remember working with a band, it was a family band called the Uchawi Dancers, and African dance troupe. We would work the Renaissance Festival each summer. So I took some of that money, I would save up and all that kind of stuff, and I bought the plane tickets, and then we lived off of, after times got tough, we were out there for a little bit in Altadena trying to take the bus into L.A. and figured out how, in the first year, we're like, oh, it's a long way. So we rented a car some kind of way. Yeah. I don't know. And after times got a little tough, I got my wallet stolen out there and whatnot from this little kid. And so we're living on cereal and soda, and water. It was, crazy. So we lived off of Odell's Amoco card.
That's what we call dues. Dues.
Yeah, right. Living off his Amoco card, man, and it was
the
pretty.
Amoco card.
And we did a actual unsung on TV One. We talk about some of this stuff. How there was this breath fight. It got really, when people brothers don't eat. They start getting, crazy. Your nerves get crazy, man. So
Right.
there was an actual breath fight, because one guy was like, "Stop breathing on me." Said, it was just
You
really.
gotta be kidding me.
No, it was like serious, and it was funny as hell. I was like, "Oh my god, what is going on?"
You were living together too long.
Yeah, pretty
spending
much.
too
We're
much
on the
time
same
anyway.
house. Yeah, it was crazy,
Yep.
man. So we get back to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we're continuing to practice and everything. And so Ray decides, and at this time, again, the whole Minneapolis thing is going on. Jesse Johnson is jumping off at this point. Maserati's jumping off at this point.
Right.
And so there was another group. There was a bunch of different groups around. So Ray Coleman decided to go play with one of these other groups, right? And we're like, okay, we were a little, felt a little dejected and whatever, a little down, depressed, whatever.
Right.
So we're looking for another bass player. We go down to this place called, I'm looking out the window because I couldn't really get in. Or maybe I did. I had a fake ID. Actually, I did get in. So, yeah. So,
Me too.
Had a fake
That's
ID.
a whole nother story, man.
Yeah, and I went in and we saw this guy with these leopard skin. Back in the day, it was the look.
Oh, yeah.
Leopard pants and the little shiny rayon. A suit jacket, whatever.
My whole back wall's filled with those kind of outfits, by the way. I understand.
Yes, you get the pajama look and all that. Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah.
We had
Guilty,
those.
guilty.
Yes. And so, seeing this guy killing it, playing bass, and he was singing background, singing lead, doing the splits and spinning. I was like, ooh, what? Who is that dude? It's Rick Kenshin.
Oh.
Yeah, Rick Kenshin. I was like, wow, what the hell, man?
He's serious.
And I was like, yeah, we need to get him. We need to get him. So that was the beginning,